Hmm. Now it's coming through my desktop. All right. Okay, now it's echoing. There we go. Looks like maybe it's a little too loud. How about this? All right, well, I'll check in the comments. Let me know if that's too loud, and I'll adjust it. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I just wanted to take a few minutes to thank everyone. And this is going to be unusually self congratulatory in a lot of ways, what I cover tonight. But I just really wanted to take a minute to thank everyone. Really never had any aspirations of doing anything interesting on YouTube. And I really just wanted to make things that made sense to me and solve problems. And gotten a lot of good feedback. And I hit 1,000 subscribers. And that's kind of like one of those, small achievements, I guess, and milestones. So, um, yeah, yeah, I guess just thanks for watching my stuff and enjoying it. So, anyway, can everyone hear me now? I saw that Faxing Effects said that he couldn't hear me. I want to make sure you can. Let me just stream myself. No, just stream myself. Doesn't look like you can. Great. No, just stream myself. Doesn't look like you can. Hmm. Oh, Steve says hearing me fine. Okay. Well, for some reason I can't hear YouTube. So there you go. Okay. Well, as it always goes with streams, um, it's always such a weird, buggy thing for me. I don't quite understand why. I use the same tools for recording my desktop, and I never seem to have any problems. But as soon as you introduce streaming and YouTube, things just go crazy. So um, anyway, I wanted to cover just a couple things about the channel, and that's the self congratulatory sort of self facing stuff that I'm not very good at and I don't do very often. But since I've got at least 1,000 people now that actually care about things that I put out there, I just wanted to cover a few things and talk about, what's next. And I promise I won't belabor the point and make it too long. So, um, let me share my desktop and just go through a quick little write up I did. So I started the channel in April of last year. The account is from 2007, so I've been a YouTube watcher for a long time. I never had an interest in creating videos. I just never thought I had anything interesting to say, and I still don't in a lot of ways. But I feel like because I use Linux, I like Linux. I know Linux, or at least my level. That I would put some things out there, and I really started with problems that I couldn't solve easily, or things where I couldn't find good information, and so I would just put out tips and tricks and that's really how I started it. And then once I put out a few and people actually responded and watched them, I thought, okay, well, what am I actually going to say? What am I doing? And the the focus really comes down to Linux and software, mainly open source, but not exclusively because I don't only use open source. I try to, but not always. Community itself. So a big part of why I have any interest in sharing anything or creating content is because of the community that I've experienced over the last year or so, and that started with Michael Tunnell from This Week in Linux, and then I found Destination Linux, and then I found Rocco and Big Daddy Linux. And I would have to say that if I have a home where I just always feel comfortable, it's got to be Big Daddy Linux. And so big thanks to Rocco and the Big Daddy Linux community for giving me a place where I felt comfortable. I've used Linux for 20 years now, and never really. I mean, I would read news, I would go to forums and things like that, but I never really engaged much because it just, I would try to help people, or if I had a problem, ask questions, but I didn't really feel a sense of people wanting to really engage and talk. And so I just never really did. And so um, when I found these communities and really found a lot of great people, a lot of the great people that are here tonight, actually, Adam, Steve, I'm not calling out everybody, but Derek, Papal Penguin, Farron, and literally everyone in here, Kevin, um, just everyone in that community I've had such a good experience with. And I, thank you to all of you for giving me someone to talk to. I think a lot of IT people in particular have a hard time with just normal people in their lives, because how do you explain what you do? Most people don't care. Or if they, at least they'll pretend that they care, but they don't really understand what you're talking about. And if you have any amount of passion or interest in technology, it's very difficult to find an outlet for that. And so I've found that and more through these communities. And so that's really what has propelled me and made me interested in doing this kind of stuff in the first place. And the other thing excuse me, the other thing that I focus on is web content, because I build websites and run servers and do things like that where um, it's just another thing I know about. So I figure, why not make some content on it as well? So there'll be some of that. Cubicle Nate, Nathan Wolf, who I co-host the DLN Extend podcast with, which is another offshoot of this whole crazy thing, is going to migrate his site soon, and we're going to do some videos on that. So we'll see some more web content. It's going to be servers and WordPress and domains and all that fun stuff. So I kind of covered most of this. What I really focus on is I love fixes and tips. They don't get a ton of views, and it's really specific most of the time. The first video I actually made was about my laptop and an issue I was having with the sleep mode, where it wouldn't actually go to sleep; it would just stay on. And when I first realized it, I thought I was going to have to actually return it, because it would stay on. It was in my bag and it was running and hot. Fans were running, and I thought something's not right here. So I actually figured out what it was. It took me quite a while to actually figure it out, and so I made a video on it. And that is, so not everybody has this Dell laptop, so that's only going to appeal to a very small group of people. But the comments I get on those types of videos, the reason I enjoy doing them so much, one, and Nate does the same thing. It's my way of remembering how to do something. In a lot of cases, I'll make one of these tips and tricks videos, and then I won't think about it for months at a time, and then I'll hop to something else and have that same situation and be like, well, wait a minute, what did I do to fix that? And I'll actually watch my own videos or go back and read my notes. And so it helps as a way to catalog my own experiences and knowledge in a way. And also the comments that I get on those videos, while it's not a lot, but the ones I get are like, thank you. I was looking for a solution for this and it was driving me crazy. And a couple people just like me were going to return the laptop because they didn't think there was a fix for it. Dell has nothing on their website about it. It's really, you have to just find it and figure it out. So, those types of videos get that kind of response, and that's exactly what I'm after. They don't need to be hugely popular. I just want them to be helpful, and it seems like they are. So that's great. Do some reviews. Everybody does reviews, right? So what's I just what am I bringing to the conversation in a lot of ways? I feel like people do just straight up Linux distro reviews, and most people do them better than I'm ever going to do them. So what I like to do for reviews is more around like the preview of something, like what's different. It's very specifically focused, like what's different. Let's take a look at that, and not so much like I don't know. And I try to fill in some gaps too. So as I'm explaining things, I try to take it from the perspective of maybe someone isn't familiar or as familiar with something as I am, and so not to assume too much information. And so, like, I'm going to get to it, but this Manjaro video I made earlier this week, it was the release review, but it wasn't a review of like long form. It was, here's the post. Here are the 5 things they say are new and different. Let's look at those 5 things, and I'll just do some basic commentary on them. But what I also do is, how is Manjaro different from regular Arch, or maybe from something else you've used? What is Manjaro in the first place? So I try to fill in some of those things. And so I feel like it's not a review in the sense that it's just like, here's Manjaro and look at the colors. And I'm really trying more to educate, I guess, is the way I'd say it, about like why is this interesting in the first place? What are some really important pieces of information to know? For Manjaro, for example, it's Arch, but they have their own repositories and their own release cadence. They do a lot of customization to the desktop. So if you were to just install KDE Plasma on Arch, you're going to have a very different experience than if you install Manjaro's Plasma edition. So that type of stuff. It's more meant to be informative than it is to be, I guess, just yet another distro review. Um, so I like doing that. I also like doing software reviews, or just calling attention to software that maybe people don't use or know about. App Image Launcher is a good example where I just, you deal with, you download an app image, you run it from whatever directory it's in, and it, in most cases, isn't going to integrate with your system in any kind of meaningful way. And so you're not going to get to it from a menu or from a launcher. You're going to have to go back to that folder. App Image Launcher fixes that. It's a really simple program that just integrates app images into your system. And it's essentially just creating app. Excuse me. It's just creating launchers in your local share application directory, and it seems like a really simple thing, but it really helps you manage the app images in a more sort of first class way. Anyway, that's something that I just really didn't see a lot of information on. I'd been using it, and I thought, this is really great. It's a simple thing, but it works so well. And why don't more people know about this? So that's the kind of video I like to make too, where it's calling attention to something or someone that isn't getting a lot of, I guess, attention, but solves a really fundamental or interesting problem and makes using Linux a better experience. I can't tell if it's fireworks or gunshots. I don't know if you can hear them. I don't live in a bad neighborhood, but that's kind of disconcerting. Anyway, let's hope for the best, right? The other stuff I like to do, even though I'm terrible at them, I actually do enjoy these live streams. I'm going to try to be more regular about it, and I'll get to sort of maybe some direction I'm going in. But hopefully, hopefully it's something I can do better. Maybe if I do them more often and practice, I'll get better at this than, than I am now. Um, so we'll see. And I excuse me. And I like streaming for a couple of different reasons. One, because I'm going to get to everybody in the chat here. I just want to get through this and jump in the chat. But I like the engagement and interaction with folks. Um, I want to try to do some more things that are interactive, but around a topic. So I like the open chats. I like where we just kind of, shoot the breeze and talk about whatever. But I think it would be interesting to do something like maybe the distro challenge of the week for Big Daddy Linux. Let's get together and talk about your experience. Everyone tried it or installed it, having any issues, stuff like that. It just seems like that would be an interesting way to use. If you look at streaming as a, I guess, as a way of communicating, right? And you're capturing it, and it can go out and be a resource for other people. But the people that are there and involved, you could have some sort of discussion or engagement or something like that where we can actually solve a problem or discuss a topic. So I want to maybe try something that's a little more focused in ways like that. So look for more of that. I think it's just something I'm going to try to do a little more. Another thing that I've been doing, which appeals to a small subset of people, is the LibreOffice series with Surge. So if you haven't seen them, they're out there. There's a whole, I don't even know how many I have now, probably like close to 10, where Surge takes me through some aspect of, at this point it's been calc, but I know we're going to look at base and some other things as well. But we just look at a functional area of calc and if statements, or the last one I just put out was pivot tables. Again, small audience, maybe not a lot of people are interested in that, but if you ever want to learn how to use a spreadsheet application in a more in-depth way, it's a great series because he really is very methodical about taking you through the examples, and I enjoy doing it. It's something I want to keep doing, and for the people, just like with the tips and tricks, for the people who watch them, they seem to get a lot out of them, and so even though it's not a huge audience, I enjoy doing them, and so so there'll definitely be some more of those as well. So just a couple stats on this, and this is maybe the most self-congratulatory part about this is I've got 78 videos right now. This will be 79. 111,000, over 111,000 views, which seems very disproportionate to me. This is very, very odd. I'm getting to how I even got to 1,000 subscribers in just a second, but I mentioned my first video was the Dell XPS 9570 Linux Sleep Suspend Fix. How's that for a title that just rolls off the tongue? Wonder why I didn't get too many clicks on that one. But it's very specific. It does exactly what it says. And that's what I was going for. If someone searched for that, like hopefully this is what they would find because it would help them with that problem. That was in late April last year. And I covered the sleep behavior switching from S2 idle to deep and how to do it either from the command line or to do it from grub as a kernel parameter. I still do that to this day. Even the most modern version of any of the distros, and it's almost a year now, I still have to do that on this system. So it's still a relevant topic. So here's the sort of, trying to think the best word for this, but what happened in the last week was, and why I'm even having this video tonight, is I made a video about Manjaro's 19.0 release, and I covered the main editions, which are XFCE, Plasma, and GNOME. And when I made the video, I made it on the release candidates, the second release candidate, and had recorded everything, put it together, edited it down, released it, and then within, I want to say 2 or 3 hours, they then did the full release, or the actual release. And I was, I actually felt totally defeated because I put all this time into recording it because it was for me, it's a very long video. It's almost 45 minutes long. And I felt like I did a pretty good job on it, but I was just like, well, who's going to want to watch the release candidate video whenever the main one just came out? But then it occurred to me the differences between the release candidate and I'd literally done it hours before. So I mean, the difference between the release candidate that I had and the full release was there. I don't think there were any actually to start. I mean, by now I'm sure there's been some updates, but um, so anyway, I put it out there. I tweeted it. I just said, "Hey, this is out there." So Philip from the Manjaro project decided he was going to embed it in the into the release announcement. So if you go to the Manjaro post for the release announcement, my video's in there. And he also retweeted it on Twitter. And and so in 3 days, that video has over 24,000 views, and I picked up, I think, 160 subscribers, something like that, from one from one video. That is by far. I mean, the other video I think that I have that's even close is like 10,000 views, and that's 4 or 5 months old. Which I'm thrilled about that many views on any video I get. If I get 100 views, I'm happy. So for this to be, it's seriously, it was unbelievable because I went to bed and there were a couple of views, and I got up in the morning and there were hundreds of views, and I thought, well, okay, I guess it's an interesting topic. Maybe that's why people are watching it. And then throughout the day, it was like every hour there's another 150, 200 views, 300 views. I'm like, what is going on? And then I finally went and looked at the release announcement because it wasn't in there originally. It was because the video hadn't been out. And I realized, oh, okay, I get it. So then I watched for the next few days, and it's still getting hundreds of views every hour. It's ridiculous. I'm grateful. I'm very happy that people enjoy it. The response has been overwhelmingly positive, and it put me over 1,000 subscribers. So, hey, dumb luck, complete dumb luck. But I think I did a fairly good job of covering things, and like I mentioned earlier, I did go through a lot of the differences between Manjaro and Mainline Arch, and maybe some of the ways they customize their desktop versus the vanilla versions of things. And just as I'm speaking, I kind of think, well, I'm saying this and I'm explaining it, but if it's almost like when I'm talking to someone who doesn't necessarily understand or know technology, if they were actually even interested in hearing me talk about this, what level would I have to be at? So I'm trying to, I don't want to be, this is Linux and this, but I also don't want to be, and if you remember in the last release, like I don't want to be so specific or so general. I'm trying to find that sweet spot in the middle. But as I'm going through it, I realize, like, well, and some of the comments verified this as well, is that even people who use Linux or have tried other versions of Linux or other distros, don't necessarily know much about Arch or Manjaro. And so just trying to inject some of those pieces of information in there, I think it's helpful. I don't know if anyone actually sat and watched the entire video. I mean, it looks like some people have, but I put timestamps in the description so that people could jump around and just, get to the desktop they wanted to see. Maybe they don't care about, one of them, and they only care about one of them. And so, yeah, I have no idea why, but it's been, a great experience. I'm really happy that it happened. I thank the Manjaro team for considering it good enough to put in their release announcement and to publicize it on Twitter. And yeah, so hopefully, if it if it indicates anything, then maybe it means that I'm on to some kind of reasonably decent content. And so hopefully, like, I'll just and again, it's so tempting, right? Because it's technically a distro review. it's so tempting to just say, well, maybe I should just make distro reviews, right? Maybe I should put my face up in the camera on every screenshot. Maybe I should, I don't want to sensationalize. I don't want to be silly. And, I don't want to become everything I dislike about the channels that I don't like that cover Linux. And it's not a personal thing. I don't know these people personally. I'm not saying I dislike the people, but I just dislike the delivery. And I don't like that it's unnecessarily flashy and silly. I think my goal is, if you see me on the camera, what I'm trying to do is just, I want you to see who I am. I'm not trying to be like, I'm so amazing and important. I really don't think that. Trust me. I just enjoy doing this, and I really enjoy the community. So, anyway, there you go. That's how I got here. That's what I'm doing. I also want to mention LBRY. I know this is about YouTube and subscribers, and I'm on YouTube, and but I just want to mention that I'm giving LBRY a try, and it seems like a lot of people are gravitating toward it right now. And not exactly sure what changed. I'm almost positive I looked at it before and just wasn't particularly impressed. What changed for me was that they make it really easy for, if you already have a YouTube channel and you have stuff published, you can very easily claim a channel on LBRY, and then they will sync your content for you. And so they basically do all the work of moving that or copying that content over to their service protocol. If you start looking at LBRY, so I'm really in the early phases of this, so I'm not going to claim to be any kind of a credible authority on this whatsoever. My stuff's on there now. There's an invite here that I'll stick in the description for this video. If you haven't tried LBRY and you want to, that link gives me some LBC, which is their blockchain credit. And in a nutshell, basically, it's what they're trying to do is, instead of recreating YouTube, they're trying to use all the best bits of sort of open source and the methodology of distributed content. So LBRY, the reason it's called LBRY, it's not an acronym. It's a protocol. So just like HTTP or SFT or FTP, or it's a protocol, and that's what they're creating. So LBRY is actually a protocol just like those, and that's where the name stems from. This is all under FAQ. This isn't like something I sleuthed out, or this is all out there. It's just stuff that I've read. And in the blockchain stuff, the LBC, here, I'll just open up, jump back to my desktop and I'll show you. So the LBC stuff is this, all right? And so essentially what it is their internal sort of blockchain currency, if you will. And as you do things in the platform, they sort of gamify it or incentivize you to use the platform. And that is just as looking at content, you get these LBCs for watching things, subscribing or following, they call it. So as you use the system, you're just earning it by virtue of using the system. And then what they kind of expect you to do with it is to use that to tip the creators that you're enjoying the content of. So rather than advertising driven financial model like most websites are, they're trying to do something more like, if you're familiar with the Brave browser and BAT currency, the basics, I can't even remember what it stands for at this point, but it's a very similar model, right? If you register with Brave as a creator and then someone's watching your content using the Brave browser, they can tip you with their BAT currency, and then you as a creator can then take that and, or whoever, tip that back to someone else, or there are ways to cash it out into real fiat currency. But that's what they're doing here, is that it's a system that's self-contained and distributed. And that way, and you can see there's some familiar faces on here. So Linux Experiment, Destination Linux is on here. DTs on here. And then there's some people on here that I haven't seen before. There's this Hex DSL, and he may have a YouTube channel, and I just don't know about him. But he's interesting. I've enjoyed watching his videos, and so there's some good stuff out here. The system itself works well. This is actually a desktop client. It's an app image, so it runs outside of a browser, and all of the from like a privacy and tracking standpoint, you can opt in to letting them track your behavior or your watch history or your system itself. You know, if what the profile of your system is, all the metadata and sort of background on your system, but it's all opt in. And if you don't log into the client, it's completely anonymous. They don't actually track any of that stuff on the back end. And unlike other services of this ilk that I've tried, and I think of like PeerTube and some others like that, where it's distributed, I've had issues personally where I can't watch content because it's just not hosted, and it's relying on that distributed model, but there's no sort of centralization. And I think what LBRY is doing is that the intent is that the majority of the content is distributed, and there's a peer system that allows you to watch that content through other nodes, basically. But they're also, I think, supplementing some of that hosting at the moment. I have that. These are the types of things I just don't know yet, and I need to understand a little better. But from my perspective, if I come in and look, you know, I have my channel here. If I come in, it's all of the videos that I post on YouTube are automatically getting pulled in here. And the great thing for me about this is that if anyone wants to watch my content, but for whatever reason has an objection to using YouTube, this is an excellent alternative to that, because it's the same content, same qualities, you know, it's all the same exact stuff, but it's in this platform, and it allows you to do that in a completely anonymous way if you want, or in a much less restrictive way, or much, you know, no advertisements. This reminds me a lot of where YouTube started. And if you guys, if you remember using it all those years ago, you know, before it was so heavily monetized and also so heavily crammed with all of the, you know, it's hard to look at a YouTube video now with all of the stuff everywhere. It's cramped. And this is nice. I think this has like a light, you know, nice light sort of feel to it. It's very clean, and I know most people like dark mode, so yes, they have a very nice dark mode. And it feels smoother. It's more lightweight, and I've been enjoying it. So I'm going to keep playing around with it. If it's something you guys are interested in, I'll stick that link in there, or just go on your own. You don't have to use my link if you want to. That's great. And so yeah, maybe it gets to the point where I enjoy that more than YouTube. The audience is not there. The same video that has, you know, all of these views on YouTube has, I think, maybe 15 on LBRY. So to be fair, I didn't publicize it as being on LBRY, and maybe that would have made a difference. But just saying, I think for right now, it's still kind of early days, but it shows a lot of promise, and certainly a lot more promise than previous iterations or other alternatives to YouTube that I've seen. So, yeah. All right, I'm almost done, I swear. And what's next is, so I don't know if this actually shows or comes through at all, but I've been trying to do better with my audio, with my setup in general, and just audio, video, artwork. And that's pushing it, calling it artwork. Maybe let's just call it the thumbnails. How's that? That kind of stuff. I'm trying to be more clear, I guess. And the audio itself has been a challenge and a half, because I've just had a heck of a time getting it to be what I want it to be, being really cheap and trying not to spend hundreds of dollars on a good microphone. And I also didn't know that was going to solve problems for me, because I felt like maybe it's not the microphone, maybe it's me and my setup. And I was using pulse effects and trying to get noise gates. Just I was trying to get it to work the way that basically when I hear someone and I think, "Ooh, that sounds really good. I like how their voice sounds. It's very clear. Not a lot of background noise. Uh, very present. When you hear a podcast, the voice sounds good. To me, and even videos, right? I just think it certainly adds something to it. It makes it a lot more engaging and enjoyable in a lot of ways. So hopefully that shows is improving. I'm definitely not there yet. I'm still working through some things. I'm getting there. Um, Video. I mean, I'm not doing action shots or anything, so I don't think the video is too bad. But um, all of this stuff, please. The other thing is, I am not pride and ownership. I mean, I want to do a good job, but I readily admit this is not something I've ever done. Certainly never done at any try to do it at any kind of credible level. And so, any feedback people have, like Steve actually had really great feedback for me last week when I showed the Audacity editing. He posted and hit me up on Telegram and was just saying, maybe not cut out all of the pauses. When I was editing the DL and Extend podcast, and I do this for my videos as well, I tend to get them as short as possible because I figure everyone has probably hundreds of things they could watch at any given time on YouTube and be interested in. If you're going to take the time to watch something I made, I want to make the best use of your time. And so I thought, well, I guess I could just cut out to get it to be 5 minutes or six, to get it to be as short as possible. I'll just cut out all of those spaces, those pauses in the words. And what I think I was doing wrong was it started to sound unnatural in some ways. And maybe the reason I wasn't hearing that is because that's how I listen to podcasts. Is I use Pocket Casts and I have the trim silence feature on, and I even generally will speed them up a little too. And so I'm so used to listening to things in that way where it's compressed, it's very fast. And so I think I was trying to do that. I was trying to make that decision for everyone else. This is what I kind of came around to, where instead of letting you pick whether you wanted to speed up the video, and which I do too as well. So I was saying, well, I'll just say that step for you. But what I figured out, and Steve pointed this out, was it just doesn't sound right. And if people don't want to hear it that way, it's going to be off-putting. And that's absolutely true. So that kind of feedback I value more than you could know, because I'm literally a guy sitting here by myself talking into a camera and a microphone. I have no real feedback loop other than what people tell me, and in my own comparisons to other things, which I think are flawed, as I just mentioned. So I would love for people to give me constructive feedback on that kind of stuff. And you're definitely not going to hurt my feelings if you say, "Wow, that sounded terrible," or "I couldn't read any of the text because it was too small," or any of the dumb mistakes I might make. Feel free to point them out. So for streaming, I mentioned I was saying that the community chat stuff, I definitely want to continue to do that. Distro D and software reviews and workshop kind of things that I was alluding to. And then an idea of like a weekly roundup where I do get a lot of comments on videos over a week's period. And I mean, not hundreds, but some enough, right? And usually a lot of them are people asking me a question on how do I do this? Or I tried this and it didn't work that way. Or I don't have a Dell laptop, but I have this laptop. Or it's something where there's a opportunity for me to have a conversation with that person. And some of those are really interesting, and some of them really turn out to be very sort of fruitful conversations. But they're buried in YouTube comments, right? Nobody reads. I mean, some people read YouTube comments. If you see a comment has a bunch of replies, do you really go through all those? So it's a shame because I think some of it gets lost. And just like the chat here tonight, I mean, there's always good stuff that comes out of this, out of these videos or out of these streams. And I feel like it just gets lost because it's so locked into that one thing, and it doesn't really ever see the light of day. I feel like, in a lot of ways. So anyway, I just had an idea. Maybe I'll do a roundup of that, or at least as part of one of my streams to just highlight some of those comments and discussions. And honestly, there's some times where they stump me, where I don't have an answer, and it might be really good to try to field some of those because I know a lot of the people that come and watch the stream are way smarter than I am and know a lot, lot more than I do. And so maybe it'd be a good opportunity to help some folks with questions, things like that. So that's it. The last thing I'll mention, I've already mentioned several times. The only other thing worth knowing is that I do the DLN Extend podcast on the Destination Linux Network, and it's Nate and I, Cubicle Nate, um, and we just chat. We just talk about Linux. I know it sounds like it would be the whole premise was we were talking about topics that came up um, in the during the week on different Destination Linux shows, Destination Linux Network shows. So Destination Linux and Ask Noah and Linux for Everyone. They just launched a new podcast called Hardware Addicts, which is all about hardware. Hard to believe, right? And it's really great. It's Ryan and Wendy and Michael, and so Wendy's bringing hardware knowledge from cameras and photography, which is something I don't know very much about. So it's interesting. And Ryan, AMD fanboy, and has all the latest cutting edge stuff, and likes to repair systems and helps people with that. And Michael, who knows nothing about it, and calls himself the hardware Padawan. But it's an interesting show. I think it actually works really well, and I've been enjoying it. And so anyway, so the point being, the people I think look at DLN Extend as being, we're just going to rehash all of the same things that they talk about, and we do bring up some things that they talk about, but it's usually only to disagree or to challenge some conclusion they've come to, and not to be disagreeable, but just because we have a different opinion. And so that's part of it. The other part of it is just what Nate and I are up to. And ultimately, it just comes down to a conversation between two friends who enjoy Linux and open source and enjoy talking to each other. And hopefully that comes through, because to me, that's what the show is. It's yes, it's about Destination Linux Network and that kind of stuff. And I'm not trying to be disparaging. It's interesting content, but ultimately, I enjoy the show because I enjoy the time I spend chatting with Nate. And if you guys, I'm sure you've heard or seen Nate. Hopefully, you have. If you haven't, he's great. He's fantastic, and that's why I enjoy doing it. So anyway, oh wait. Okay, now I'm going to get to chat, and I'm going to see how you guys have been harassing me this entire time, and I've been completely ignoring you. All right, let's see it. I'm scrolling back up. All right, Steve says, "Welcome to my world." Yes, Steve, but you've become the streaming master. You so rarely have problems. The fact that you had problems with your camera last time was that was strange to me, because you suspiciously have so few streaming problems. I don't know what's going on. I'm very jealous of that. Because I maybe suspiciously have nothing but problems. So I don't know. I will figure this out eventually. So we have Adam here. Good to see you. And naming Faxing Effects, Chris, Papal Penguin. Now I'm just reading out names on the chat, and everybody loves that. But I just wanted to catch up. Vince is here. Vince, good to see you. Vince has a YouTube channel. He's done some very interesting videos, and they're really good. And so I'm going to pull up your channel. Take that. Is it Sleepy Eyes Vince? Yes. No. Where are you, Vince? Anyway, okay, I can't find it. Vince has a YouTube channel, and it's really good. He doesn't have a lot of videos, but the ones he has are super excellent, and they're on things like terminal commands and super nerdy stuff that I just love. If you haven't checked it out, Vince, are you a moderator? Yes, you are. Put a link to your channel in there. You make me do it for. Hank, yeah, it is. It's a very tight community. I agree. It's made a huge difference to me. Like I said, it's. I honestly don't. Like I said, I wouldn't be having this conversation tonight if it weren't for that. I just it goes well beyond just the fact that I can be nerdy and talk about Linux and technology. It's just good people, right? I mean, Rocco himself is just a great example and just a good, kind-hearted person. And if you've not listened to his Linux Spotlight series, you definitely owe it to yourself to go out and check out. Even if you just cherry pick at this point, there's plenty out there, but he's just so warm and engaging, and Biddle itself. And yeah, if any of you don't do Biddle, you definitely should come and check it out. It's a great community. You know, the website has all the information, BigDaddyLinux.com, but there's a Telegram group that's active. There's a discourse forum, Discord server. There's a weekly live stream at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then every second Saturday, and that's Saturdays at 8 p.m. Every second Saturday, there's a Europe edition that's at 3 p.m. Eastern U.S., so it's earlier for the European crowd. And just a great bunch of people. Honestly, I can never say enough good things. Silent, congratulations. Yes, well, congratulations to you for your releases for Salient OS. And you guys don't know, Silent Robot has a distribution called Salient. And is it Salient or Salient OS? It's Salient in either case. And it'd been based on XFC and still is, but there's also I believe, GNOME and Plasma version out there as well. And so we haven't seen him for a few months, and I didn't know why, and now I know why, because he's been very busy. So it's I would say maybe gamer focused. Jason Evangelo did an article on it, or a video, maybe both. And it's just a great. Oh, Hope says scroll the chat down. Okay, Vince posted his link. Yes, go check out Vince's channel. Alan Pope, good to see you, sir. I'm going to be doing some videos on these upcoming releases here. I'm waiting for Feature Freeze, and then I'm going to switch over to 2004 and start kicking the tires, see what's going on. Also, Mr. Pope, for folks that don't, I mean, you don't know Alan Pope, you're probably new to Linux. He's just one of those familiar folks. He's done a couple more videos, and he's going to do a series on 2004, and the first one's out. It's excellent. Please go check it out. He's keeping them short format, which is nice, so they're easy to watch. And he also did a really cool one on his desktop, his workflow, right? His desktop workflow, and it's Ubuntu, but it's a lot of stuff like nuts and bolts, extensions he's using, the software he uses on a daily basis. I love those kind of videos because there's always some little nugget of information in there that we all use our computers the way we use them, but there's always some little interesting. It's almost like voyeurism in a way, right? Because it's a personal computer. Like, this is my stuff and the way I use it and the way I want to set it up. And they open the curtain a little bit, and you get to see someone else's workflow, and it's always interesting to me. I love those kind of videos, and I actually found some. Alan, you had shown this sound chooser and this is excellent. The one I had been using was not working well, and as soon as I saw this, I went and found it. Um, yeah, good stuff. So yes, if you have any interest in Ubuntu 2004 Ubuntu at all, or just want to hear a very soothing British voice, Alan Pope's your guy. Uh, and you know what? You should be a moderator as well. And why don't you post a link to your YouTube if you wouldn't mind? All right. So apparently I missed something further down the chat. I don't care. I'll get to it. You have to be patient. This is my stream. See, 1,000 subscribers already going to my head. Good Lord. Joe, good to see you, sir. Donnie, thank you for congratulating me. This is total dumb luck, but thanks for the congratulations. Kevin says, please don't do distro reviews. There are enough people out there. Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's saturated. I don't think I have anything interesting to add to just a generic distro review. I think it's more interesting to, like I said, to go into the details of what's different between them instead of just scanning down through. I can't read and talk at the same time. So Steve says he's tired of doing reviews. I don't know, because the ones that you and Colin do, it's your experience with it. It's not that. How's the best way to say this? Excuse me. It's not the. Maybe I'm focusing on a very specific subset of YouTubers who make distro reviews. Maybe that could be. Maybe I need to be that specific. The way that you guys do it, I think, is meaningful, and I find them interesting because you're going through the steps, and I guess it's also meaningful because I know you, and I get to talk to you guys and understand how you use your computers, and I know your setups and stuff like that. So it's always interesting to me to see when you go through it that the problems you might come across. Can I say how much I am waiting for GNOME 336 and the notifications do not disturb? I know there's an add-on, but I'm waiting for native support of that. Anyway, I think those kind of distro reviews are interesting, but I agree. There's so many out there. You guys do a better job than I would, frankly, and I just feel like why bother with that? So anyway, thank you, ST4033. Not seeing the new changes in Manjaro 19 KDE. Is it because I had KDE on Debian and kept my previous settings? That's a good question. It is entirely possible, but I would think that if you had the newer versions of Plasma frameworks and all of that stuff, and especially the Manjaro stuff, when you say you're not seeing the new changes, that's pretty broad. I mean, it could be if you're not seeing the themes, then yeah, that stuff. I mean, all of your desktop settings and your user preferences are stored in your home folder, and so it's very likely that if you installed Manjaro and then copied your home folder over top of what was there by default, that it overwrote those settings. So that is entirely possible. I stopped doing that. So people will commingle their Linux distros or their desktop environments. Maybe they'll have a single distro, but they'll have multiple desktop environments. I never had anything but bad luck with that. First of all, you've got all the different dependencies for the different desktops, and it just gets very messy and very ugly very quickly to me. So what I do is each distro has its own home folder with its own settings, and there are some things that I will copy over between them or sync up between them. But for the most part, I just let each distro and I dual boot normally, so each one has its own partition, root partition with home and all that stuff. And then I have my data partition, all my documents and files and all that stuff is actually a separate drive, but you can just have it as a separate partition. And then I just have and then I map that partition or mount that drive on both on each distro, and then by virtue of just having a different drive, then I have the data in either system, but it's not being polluted by the distro itself, if that makes sense. Because polluted might be might be a bad way to say that, but um, it doesn't. There's no conflict there because the home folders are separate. And the reason, again, that I can do that is because the data that would normally be in your home folder, all of those folders are actually somewhere else, and I just do a soft links over from that data drive to my home directory. So it looks like, so if I, I mean, you can see here, these are all links to something else, and all these live out on a different drive. So, all right. I know this is taking me a while to get through. I apologize. I am getting to the bottom of the chat, I swear. Is there anywhere I could post some fan art? DeviantArt comes to mind. DeviantArt's been out there for a long time. It's a great site. There's a lot of great stuff out there. And when I think of fan art, and particularly good fan art, is for some reason DeviantArt always pops into my head. There's some amazing content out there. It's not just fan art. There's people put themes and icon stuff out there. People put photography, any kind of like artwork and drawing, digital artwork, and a lot of wallpapers. There's just a lot of really great artists that put their stuff on DeviantArt. I don't know that it's free. I know it used to be. I'm not an artist, so I go there to get things, but I don't know what it's like to actually post or host things there. But yeah, DeviantArt is pretty spectacular from my perspective. I don't know anything more than that. So, oh, Mitchell can't stay, but he came to congratulate me. Thank you, Mitchell. I will thank you, I guess, this weekend on Biddle. Isaiah, thank you. MX Fangirl Rose says I bribe them. Hey, whatever works, right? I'm not above that. Right, Vince says just change the title. Vince, I did change the title. The original title of that Manjaro video was release candidate. And I thought, you know what? That's going to turn some people off. So why don't I just go change that a little bit? So now it's just the releases. And to be fair, it really isn't any different than the releases. So, I mean, come on. Yeah, I'm cheating a little bit. So, thank you, Nani. Kevin. Oh, Kevin. We need to catch up. Kevin's amazing. He's so much fun. He says I'm mainstream now. Yeah. So Mort says, how do you earn 1,000 subscribers? I don't know, Mort. It's a good question. Get lucky in some ways. I think, I have no interest in being mainstream or unjustifiably popular. There's nothing I do I feel is that incredible that I need to be heard or seen. Right? I do a podcast, and I think that's a place for me to maybe be a little more expressive about some opinions. I like to be on Biddle and engage with folks and have conversations. The stuff I put on YouTube is more about, I have no agenda. I want to just, like I said, fix problems and just make stuff that I like, and hopefully I get better at it, and maybe that shows as I go on. But it's not an attempt to try to chase other people. Some people are pretty shameless about, they want to be a YouTuber. They want to pull in as many people as they can. And I think it's like anything in life. Personally, for me, if it's good, then it should have, based on that merit, it should get attention, right? And that, unfortunately, I know that's not how the world actually works, but that's sort of how I feel, is that if I put out something, and I can't tell you, so there's 78 videos that are posted, right? I've probably made 278 videos and have not posted 200 of them. And I I would say that if I'm exaggerating, it's only by a very small amount. I can't tell you how many times I've recorded something and spent hours trying to put it together, get it, editing it, and I just hate it. I hate it. I hate something I did. I hate the way I phrased it. Like whatever it is, just something. It wasn't good. It wasn't. I put myself in the position of would I watch this, and if I did, would I actually think I either got something good information out of it, or um, does it have merit? Should it actually? Does anyone in the world care that I made this video? Right, and um, in a lot of cases, the answer is no. I feel like now some of them I'll re-record or I'll edit in a way that I'm happier with it. But in some cases, I'm just not happy with what comes out, and I throw it away. Um, I don't want to put garbage out. I just don't. And I'm very self critical and probably more than I should be in some cases. But I feel like if I absolutely detest something, there's no way someone else is going to like it. So anyway, I have no good. The advice if you're trying to get subscribers, I'm not going to give you the advice that you want to hear because it's not my motivation, right? And I think that's the difference. Like if you want to learn how to get 1,000 subscribers, go and do it my way. Then just do the things that you think are good and put them out there, and hopefully people respond to them. If you want to just gain subscribers, then go see what other people who are popular do. There's a formula. It's not too hard to figure out. I mean, in a lot of cases, it's not a guarantee, but in terms of like the thumbnail that you have to use, or the way your face has to be up in the camera, or there's definitely a formula to how some people or a lot of people are successful, and it works. I don't know why, but it does. So anyway, Colin, I already talked about you. Good to see you, man. Colin, also put your YouTube channel in, please. If you haven't. Colin, I alluded to his videos. He makes honestly some of the best. And I'm not trying to say anyone else isn't doing this, but I really, really, really enjoy Colin's videos. Um, he just the way he approaches it and goes through it is just so like light and easy, and it's enjoyable to watch. And for me, at least, I'm trying to oversell it, but if you haven't checked out Colin's PCTLC, if you haven't checked out Colin's videos, you should take a look. Papal Penguin also has a YouTube channel. You probably already know who he is. He threw me off with this. He changed his name everywhere, and who's Papal Penguin? But I'm not gonna divulge his secrets here. It's up to him if he wants to reveal his secret identity, his true identity. So, Tony, hello, Tony. How are you tonight? Invoking a spell of Wimpress summoning. Oh my goodness, Martin Wimpress is here as well. Boy, this has turned into quite an event. I didn't know we'd have such distinguished guests. Good Lord. Yes, so I already told you about Alan. Martin, I mean, he's another one of those people that if you probably haven't used Linux very long if you don't know who Martin Wimpress is. So I'm not going to go into all his background. Here's the great thing: there are wonderful community interviews of a lot of people, the people in here, particularly Alan and Martin, where they go through their background, how they got to where they are, what they do, why they care, all of those good things. Just know. So at this point, Martin is the head of desktop at on ClickX. Okay, so my wooden button has shipped. Thank you, Alan. I was hoping for like an Adobe brick, like a mud brick one. I think wood might be too much for 1,000. Maybe wood could be the 5,000. Anyway, so yeah, Martin right now is the head of the desktop group, manager, lead. I honestly don't know what it is, like the emperor of desktops now, whatever it is. Just know that so Martin is heading up the desktop group division of Canonical for Ubuntu, and he comes from the background of Ubuntu Mate, and I mean just being in the Linux community forever, and a user and a creator and a developer, advocate, all those things. And so, yeah, so I'm looking for. I'm not trying to put any undue pressure on, but I'm looking for some pretty amazing things to come out of the desktop team. There's been this question of, does Canonical value the desktop, because there's so much on the server side, and I think we can all agree that that's definitely the case. There is a concerted effort to make the desktop an excellent experience, and it's a first class part of Canonical and their offerings. And I've said this and will continue to say it. I've used Ubuntu for the 15 years it's been available, and it's the one consistent fallback. It's the one consistent system that always does what it's supposed to do. I rarely have issues, and when I do, I just go bug Alan, and he fixes it for me, which is really handy. So if you're really nice to Mr. Pope, he'll help you. So thanks for joining, guys. I appreciate that. Oh, here it is. Director of Engineering for Ubuntu Desktop. Gee, why couldn't I remember that? I'm not sure. Why could that be? All right, I'm going to copy this. Here, you can see me doing it now. I'm copying this. I'm going to put notes in here. I hope you're enjoying this. There it is, in black and white, for all to see and for me to remember. So, oh yes, I forgot Snapcraft. Oh my goodness, Snapcraft, WSL, and advocacy. So WSL, yeah, WSL is going to change things in a pretty interesting way, and I think so much for the better in a lot of cases. So I was in IT for a long time, and I had some Linux things and lots of Windows things, because that's just sort of how corporate enterprise works, enterprise IT, and it was never a good fit, never a good melding of the two. Now, Windows could take advantage of all those robust Linux services, which is why you ran Linux, because that's where you'd actually want to put a server, or some sort of really important process was on a Linux box, and then you had a Windows infrastructure that sort of used that to get things done. And but administering between them was never particularly easy. I mean, there are things that you can use to more or less give you a bash type shell, and there's PowerShell, and there's some other things on Windows that kind of get you there. But the promise of WSL has been that you can actually run Linux, an actual version of Linux on Windows. And WSL, the original, was kind of limited in some ways in terms of the abstraction layers and like how it's actually able to access resources on the host and things like that. And WSL 2 has made pretty significant improvements. And what's come out of that is that there have been partnerships, or between the Linux distribution vendors, maintainers, and Microsoft on rolling out their distros on or making them work well on WSL. And Canonical is on board with that, and is doing. I imagine Canonical is going to see a great benefit from from recognizing this opportunity and getting out there. So they've actually helped with the first conference as well. I think they actually hosted the first conference, and I think it's an exciting time to see what was traditionally such a combative and hostile sort of relationship between Microsoft and open source, and how we've just it's completely turned around, right? Microsoft's still a for-profit corporation. Chronicle is a for-profit corporation. I'm not disparaging that. I mean, that's capitalism. The companies have to make money. So I know some people have maybe some scary feelings about some of that. But I think ultimately, this is something that's going to benefit everyone, and it's going to make Ubuntu and Canonical stronger and better. It's going to make Linux on Windows a reality and better. It's going to make those corporate enterprise environments better. It's going to make, I think, a lot of things better. And yeah, this to me is real progress, right? I mean, we see the evolution of Linux as it's being developed, and new things are added to the kernel, and new technologies are adopted. But in terms of the reality of like where is Linux, where does it fit? Obviously, it rules the server space, but in corporate IT, I mean, how do you not penetrate, but how does it become something more relevant in that area? And I think WSL just sort of opens a door that really hasn't been there before. So that's a lot of pontification, and I'm probably wrong with most of it. But from my perspective, that's sort of how I feel. So. All right. See, everybody disagree with me on that. Hey, DT, how you doing, man? Good to see you. And embrace Ubuntu. Yes. Yes, and that's all of that like leftover Microsoft vitriol where it's the evil Redmond Corporation, where it's I don't think that exists anymore in a lot of ways. I just really don't. I mean, I'm sure there's still some amount of that culture left, but I just think between the leadership and the people who are there, the engineers, the product and project people, and I just don't see it. I mean, Azure is such a huge success for them, and so much of that is thanks to Linux and open source. I think they would be foolish to not recognize that. And so the attitudes I think have really changed, and I've said this before, but I just don't see how they could possibly extinguish open source. I mean, they can embrace and extend, right? That's the old adage: embrace, extend, extinguish. But they can embrace and extend it, which I think they've already done. They're doing that. But it's Ubuntu. It's open source. It's any distribution. It's all open source software. What can they extinguish there, right? And then people will say, well, then you're going to have less desktop adoption, because why would people do that if they can just use WSL? WSL doesn't really solve that issue, right? That doesn't replace the desktop from that perspective. I think it's more of a tool, right? It's allowing you to get these tasks done using a full Linux, all the power of Linux, let's say. And yes, it's on a Windows desktop, but I think that's just the start of it. I mean, what I expect to happen is that the people who haven't been exposed to that type of stuff, especially these, engineers or people who are in this kind of work, start to see the power of Linux and kind of go, "Wow, this is open source." Like maybe they have that perception that that old sort of Microsoft mindset where it was evil, or I don't. All of that was very silly. Kevin says PowerShell on Linux. Yeah, you know what? It's funny. So I've been on Windows recently for some different things, and I've actually used PowerShell more than I had in quite a while, and it has merit. I can do ls in PowerShell and it knows what I'm talking about. I like that. I mean, I think PowerShell, I mean, is it as good as a bash prompt? You can argue that, but I think it's really better than a command prompt. Oh my! Like I said, I can't read and talk. Oh, by the way, Alan, genius idea to pre-record and then stream the recording so that you could then participate in chat. When you said that at the end, I was like, oh, that is so smart. I should definitely do that. Except that I'm here engaging in the chat. So maybe for my streams that are, for my streams that are some of those more informational ones. IR genius. You are genius. Okay, maybe you're not a genius, but you've learned some things over the years. Very smart. I was jealous. I had that tinge of jealousy where I was like, why didn't I think of that? All right. So did I open the Microsoft Linux can of worms here? I'm reading. Oh, too far. I love having a hotline to your desktop. You should. You should. I could just leave it open if you want, but it's not as dramatic as the notification. Less attention getting. Oh my. Yes, DT PowerShell has ls. It does. Believe it or not. And I did it by mistake. I didn't even know what I was doing. I got in there and I wanted to see the directory instead of hitting dir, like you would. I went ls and I'm like, oh, that's not going to work. And sure enough, it did. And I'm like, oh, okay. I can live with that. Big Pod says there are still people in Microsoft that don't like Linux, but they are in IBM. So they are in IBM, NVIDIA, everywhere, really. I don't know if I understand that, Big Pod. I'm sorry. I'm glad you're here. Nice to see you. The gist of people not still being in Microsoft, I'm sure there are. But look, I think Azure again is just one of those. They've seen so much success with using open source that I don't know how you can argue against it, right? Even as a corporation, whenever you kind of have to follow what's going to be successful, and they're doing it. Stop talking good about Microsoft. Okay, all right, I will stop. Fan art for me. That please don't, please. Oh, good lord, that would be frightening. Nobody here wants to see fan art of me. I don't even know what that would look like. I'm just picturing it. It's so bad. What I'm picturing is so bad. I can't imagine what the reality would be. Oh my goodness. Fan fiction. That would be even worse. Oh my goodness. That would be frightening. All right. Oh, hope he says he's going to pay good money for fan art of me. All right. If you insist on doing it, please keep it clean. For the love of God, nobody wants to see any indecent fan art of me. Why did I even say that? I'm going to edit the stream now. I'm taking that out. This has gotten silly. All right. This is what happens. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I really don't have much else. I guess the only other thing I could go on about is some of this audio stuff I've been working on. And I'm going to show you the jack stuff. Um, Jack is simultaneously fantastic and infuriating. Mostly fantastic, sometimes infuriating, and it's actually kind of fun in a really nerdy, weird way. Um, great. Now I've got Wimpy. This is getting out of hand. Don't make me kick you guys or block you. I don't want to have to do that. Stay friendly here. We can get through this. All right. So I'm not going to go into every little detail about Jack. It's a differing. It's an audio sort of. It's an audio server that is sort of pipes content, right? So there's an in point and an out point, and that's what you're seeing here is a graphical representation of the routing in the Jack engine. So I've got the input from my system is the microphone and the audio USB audio uh, input, and then I'm telling it. You have cache, huh? I can see where this is going. I've I'm disturbed by this. See this? You see this? I have to add him as a contact. He has cache. This is disturbing. Control yourselves. I know it's getting late there. What time is it? 2 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing? Friday night. Shouldn't you be out somewhere having a good time? Or sleeping? I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So yeah, so the capture is the microphone, and then these are just some plugins that I have. So there's a gate that's cutting some background noise. And wait, what o'clock? Beer o'clock. Yes, it is. It's going to be beer o'clock for me as soon as I'm done with this stream. So I've got a couple of filters in here, the gate, and then an EQ. I'll show those in a second. And then it goes out through this jack source, which is a pulse audio module, and that's what's coming in to OBS. Now, if you have certain applications are aware of jack, and you can actually just pipe them right into this chain. But for things that only understand pulse audio, then you just pipe it back out to this source. And then, like if you saw in the background, OBS doesn't know about jack. It doesn't have a maybe it does. Okay. Default OBS, stock OBS, whenever you start it up, it doesn't see it here. But if let me open Simple Screen Recorder. If I come in here and tell it to use jack, you'll see that whenever I start my preview, or whenever I actually start recording, or it's going to make a liar out of me. I must have done something wrong. I swear to you, this works. When you have a jack aware application, it will. Oh, Pulse Audio. That's why. Here, now it'll work. There you go. See in the background? So now I could wire this in any way. And that's what kind of makes this interesting is now you have a way to control the audio chain, the audio process in a lot of different interesting ways. So I mentioned those filters, and they're just basically plugins that you stick in a rack. This is all like virtualized audio equipment. And so if I pull up the gate, then it's showing the baseline where it's going to cut me off if I'm too quiet. So that way, if I'm typing or clicking, you don't hear it. And then for the EQ, you roll off the low end because you anything below sort of these frequencies is just rumble and noise. Doesn't really add anything to the voice. And then you roll off the high end because it's kind of the same way. And if you see, my voice doesn't even get into this range. And then right here, I have my S's. You can see they're a little further off to the right. That sharp S sound I have, which so many people have thanked me for, by the way. This kind of rolls that down a little bit. And so this is super basic, but that's just to kind of show you, like, Jack is really cool. It's not easy. It takes some time to play around with. If you really want to see how this would work and can be set up, go check out Linux Gamercast. Ven on there is like the guru, the master of this. You see, he has an equivalent panel like this, and it is just like row after row after row of things all wired together. It's enough to make your eyes cross. But when I was starting looking at this, I made the mistake of watching his videos, and he has that unfortunate tendency that so many of us do, that when we know something so well, we look at it and we go, "That makes perfect sense. That's completely understandable." And I looked at it and went, "What? I don't even. What is that?" And so it might maybe not be your best place to start, but it's definitely a good place to see what's possible. And it's been a lot of fun. I'm enjoying playing around with it. But anyway, all right, that is pretty much all the things that I have this evening. I'm going to do more on Jack. I'm going to do actual videos on that and try to share some of my experience. DT too. I mean, DT's got outrageous audio equipment. And DT, I noticed you just got an RE20. I saw that on your last video. You probably have got it sooner. I haven't seen. Admittedly, I've been watching a lot of videos, but I saw that RE20 and I was like, ah, very nice. So, yes, there are some people out there that know way more than I do about audio, but this is where I think maybe I add something, is that I had to learn a lot of this myself. Oh, you got the RE27. Oh, nice. Anyway, so yeah, I'll have some content on Jack and just audio setup. I've wanted to create some stuff already, but I feel like I'm so bad at it that why would I possibly share it? Because what are you going to get out of seeing me flounder? I'd rather have some, like, here's what you actually do to get a basic minimal setup going, and then you can go from there. So, sorry about that. All right. And then there's, that's the kind of stuff that I'm just going to keep doing. And then I'll do these streams because you guys are so much fun. Seriously, I have so much fun hanging out with you guys. Kevin says, help. What do you need help with? I'm going to go back and read the chat. I feel like I've missed so much in this chat. This is one of the unfortunate things of hosting a stream instead of just participating, is that you can have so much fun in the chat and follow everything. And I'm trying so hard not to just be quiet and read. They're watching from the pub. I wonder. They might be. Jack is as infuriating as Pulse. Can we port over Microsoft's audio server? Yeah, Jack can be infuriating. So the KX Studio stuff, I know it's not perfect, but it has made this a much easier process for me. KX Studio has a set of utilities, plugins. They have an updated version of some different standard packages. This is not Premiere worthy, you know that. So KX Studio has made it a lot easier for me to use Jack. I was using QJack Control and yeah, just some different tools that KX Studio at least has sort of so if I look at Cadence, right? So this is Cadence. Yeah. And this is what you configure your all of your stuff, right? And this takes a while to figure out kind of what makes sense and how all this should fit together. I'm not going to go into any of that right now. But you see that they have this tools section here, and they kind of call out, like, these are some different tools that you're probably going to use to do audio. And so I'm using it's funny enough, they don't have Carla listed in here, which is this. I guess I think Katia or Claudia are similar. Anyway, to me, Carla's the easiest one, so that's the one I use. But it's a whole series of suite of tools, and they've done enough to hook them all together and make it cohesive that it really it made sense to me for the first time where I just couldn't make it make sense before, at least not well. So, um, this is all gold for tutorial. Well, you've done your desktop workflow video, and I was thinking, should I do one? I may. Got some good stuff in here. Photopea. How to do some Photoshop quality editing in your browser. Typora, I'm using here for Markdown. Well, everybody loves VirtualBox, I'm sure. OBS, audio volume control. Reaper, not open source, but boy, is it good. The digital audio workstation. There'll be some info on that coming up. It solved a lot of my audio issues that I had trying to use Ardour and other things. Yeah, I've got all kinds of good stuff. So, all right, my friends, I've been blabbering for an hour and a half, and I think I've said everything I'm going to say tonight. You're not going to get any more out of me. I genuinely appreciate. I, I I did not think I would ever have any kind of response to YouTube, to any of the things I've been doing, and I genuinely appreciate everything, all of the positive feedback. It amazes me that my videos get, and not trying to brag or anything, and maybe I'm setting myself up for a disaster here, but most of my videos get mostly thumbs up, like just really good positive response. Um, People seem to respond well to them, and so I feel like there has to be some kind of merit there. And so, genuinely, I humbly thank you, and I appreciate every every bit of support and goodwill and feedback that you've given me. And I continue to, I will continue to keep doing these things and engaging, interacting with all of you. This is going to sound really corny, but I mean, I really feel like when I'm trying to make these videos, I want to feel like I'm talking to one of you, or to the community, to a person, right? I don't want to just be a speaker on a stage, just projecting my voice out there. I want it to feel as though there's some warmth and interaction there, because that's what I'm trying to do. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes my voice is very monotone, or just very droll. And it's tough for me sometimes to really get, maybe I'm a little too even sometimes, or a little too level. And but just know that I am passionate about this. I really enjoy not only the software and the fact that I can do these things on, for software that I don't pay a dime for, or don't have to pay a dime for. I actually do support a bunch of stuff. But so I'm eternally grateful, to Linux, to open source, to Canonical and Ubuntu and Arch and Manjaro, and all the different things I love about this, and the community that goes around it. And as long as you'll have me, I will continue to engage and be a part of it and enjoy every minute of it. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, the rest of your evening, early morning, wherever you are. What does Steve say? Steve says something. I don't remember what Steve said. Says it every time too, and I never quite hear him. Not sure why that is, Steve. Anyway, everyone have a great night. Thanks for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. And I will see you again soon. All right. Take care.